Thank you very much. It is now with pleasure that I introduce an old friend of mine, Razeen Sally, from the National University of Singapore. Oh, there you are.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to give a strictly mid-20th century short talk, no visual props. Now, I'm going to talk to you not about a specific project, but about Sri Lanka. Now, you may be wondering why this white-looking person is talking to you about Sri Lanka. So let me explain my Sri Lankan connection. I'm half Sri Lankan. I was born in Colombo. Colombo, the capital, is my hometown. I left when I was fairly young, but have been going back fairly regularly in the last 10 years or so. I've just written a book on Sri Lanka, a memoir, a travel book, which will come out later this year. And more to the point, since the government changed in 2015, I've become quite closely involved in policy work and policy advice. I advise the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance. A bit of background about Sri Lanka for those of you unacquainted or little acquainted with the island. Sri Lanka should be where the East Asian tigers are now. Living standards in Malaysia are about 4 to 5 times what they are in Sri Lanka. And Sri Lanka was, around 1950, the second wealthiest country in Asia after Japan. Even as of the 1960s, living standards in Sri Lanka were higher than they were in Malaysia, in South Korea, indeed in nearly all other East Asian countries. But Sri Lanka has slipped very much behind. Now, it's not to say that Sri Lanka is dirt poor. For those of you who've been to Sri Lanka, it looks wealthier than most parts of South Asia. Very few people are actually starving. But people don't have the life chances they deserve for all sorts of reasons. We have 1 million three-wheelers in Sri Lanka. These are people who should be doing more productive work. We have maids who go to the Middle East, whose daughters go as maids to the Middle East, and so on. So Sri Lanka has huge potential, which it's not realizing. Now, why is that? Well, you can trace it to collectivist economic policies that started in the 1950s, and from then to the 1970s in particular, did a lot of damage, to policies of ethnic discrimination against the minorities, which led to 25 years of civil war, and other things besides. The last government Sri Lanka had, under President Mandarin, did 4 big illiberal things, and they're very much interconnected. The first was to move to much more authoritarian politics. The second was to put Sri Lanka's foreign policy eggs in the China basket. So Sri Lanka became almost a vassal state of China. The third was to oppress minorities in the name of a singular Buddhist majority agenda. And last was to deliberalize the economy by increasing government intervention at home and protectionism abroad. So that leads me to say something about Sri Lanka today. The government changed 3 years ago, just over 3 years ago, and Sri Lanka then had the golden opportunity to realize the potential that it's never achieved post-independence. And true, some things have improved. It's a much more liberal political atmosphere. People don't disappear in the middle of the night. Human rights abuses have lessened. Ethnic tensions have reduced, though they still remain. The underlying problems still remain. Sri Lanka has improved relations with India and with the West, so foreign policy has been rebalanced. But, crucially, the economic reforms that Sri Lanka needs to realize the potential of its ordinary people have not materialized because of political blockages in what is a very messy political situation. We have a president and a prime minister from 2 different parties, and cohabitation in government between these 2 major parties. So let me now sketch very briefly what I think is a credible liberal vision for Sri Lanka. And it has 4 components. And they are of a piece. They're interconnected. The first is a liberal polity. Sri Lanka should aspire to have stable liberal democratic politics. The second is a liberal open society based on non-discrimination without an ethnic agenda that discriminates in favor of the majority, supposedly, and against ethnic and religious minorities. The third is a liberal foreign policy. For Sri Lanka, not only to be friends with China, but also to be friends with India, the West, and others besides. And particularly to have its civilizational friends among fellow liberal democracies. The fourth major element, perhaps the most important, is an economic freedom agenda, which is what's most lacking. So Sri Lanka needs much more prudent fiscal policies on taxation and expenditure, monetary policy that prioritizes keeping inflation low, a stable exchange rate. And it needs to free up both external trade and internal trade. There are all kinds of restrictions, particularly on small, medium, micro enterprises in Sri Lanka. They need to be removed. Restrictions on international trade and investment need to be removed because that really should be a real engine of the Sri Lankan economy. Now, all of these things can be done. Other things are more complicated and will take a longer time to do. But stabilizing the macroeconomy, fiscal policy in particular, liberalizing the domestic economy, and liberalizing international trade and investment, these are things that can be done. Some of us got together with senior politicians and had an economic retreat just before Christmas, where we had an action plan, we have a priority agenda. The key now is implementation over the next couple of years before the next general elections. Now, if this isn't done, if these key reforms aren't done, then there's the risk not just of continued drift, like what we've seen over the last few years, of Sri Lanka underachieving, not achieving its potential. But there's the bigger danger of a relapse. That's to say, of dissatisfied Sri Lankans voting in perhaps a big man like Mahinda Rajapaksa, possibly his brother Gotabaya at the next presidential election, and then Sri Lanka reverting again to authoritarian politics, to becoming a vassal state of China, to having a Sinhala Buddhist supremacist agenda that stokes ethnic conflict again, and finally to much more authoritarian crony capitalism, crony socialism. So those are the big challenges. And if I were to sum it up, I'd say this. The big liberal challenge for Sri Lankans is to do two things. One is to play the insider game for those involved in policy, politicians, senior officials and their advisors, to get that reform agenda through despite political obstacles in the next couple of years. The second thing, as important, is the public advocacy role. On all liberal fronts, and on the front that's missing most, which is the economy, and an economic freedom agenda. Luckily, Sri Lanka does have a new free market think tank at Jakarta. There are two representatives on one of those tables over there. They are doing a brilliant job from small beginnings, and I'd hope to see it expand and become more influential in the public debate. And hopefully in the not too distant future, I hope that we in Sri Lanka can welcome all of you and hopefully have some better news for you about liberal reform in Sri Lanka. Thank you.
Thank you, Razeen. Next, I'm very honored to introduce Eunhee Park from Teach North Korean Refugees.
Freedom for me means being able to express myself and be outspoken. It means thinking for myself and being free to be curious. I am a North Korean refugee who escaped in 2012 for this freedom. At the age of 5, my parents divorced and I went to live with my grandparents. The divorce deeply affected my mother and she became very ill. She passed away 10 years later. My dad started a new life with a new family. The fact that my parents divorced seems to surprise many people, and I often get the question, is divorce possible in North Korea? I tell them that while uncommon, it is possible. Even though it is an isolated country, may seem like another planet to them, people living there are just like everyone else. It is a small question like this that makes it clear how just little people have of life inside North Korea. This encouraged me to speak out. When I was in North Korea, I would get in trouble for doing something, for simple wearing earrings or clothes that stood out. As a punishment, I was forced to stand in the police station for 6 or 7 hours with no food or water. I witnessed the girls getting their hair chopped off with the scissors on the street by the police officers. This gives a whole new meaning expression, fashion police. I've also been beaten by the police for trying to escape. This is a lack of freedom. Every time I walked out of the house, I was afraid to get caught by the police because of the clothes I wore. I thought these punishments were normal until I illegally watched the South Korean dramas and American movies. People in these dramas were so free and joyful. I began to compare my life in North Korea to theirs. Why did I have to be punished for the full expression of my personality? In North Korea, we get brainwashed at school and through TV. We learned that Kim Jong-il and Kim Jong-un had no time to properly eat or sleep because of all the time they dedicated to helping citizens. However, it is easy to tell from just one look at the Kim Jong-un on TV, he eats more than enough. I asked why. Why do they tell us that Kim doesn't eat enough and doesn't sleep? Because he is sacrificing for us, but he's fat. When I came to South Korea, I learned about issues like animal abuse, child abuse. I realized that there is such a thing as a basic human rights. These ideas don't exist in North Korea. I became passionate about learning more. North Korean people don't think much about many of the social and cultural issues that people in free countries think about because they were born to live as political slaves for the Kim family. Let's work together to change this. We only live once. I decided that I had better chase my dream to go to another country where I could live as a human being. Some people may think that the mention of the being upset and not dressing the way I wanted in North Korea is a superficial concern, but the matter goes deeper than that. By escaping, I was looking to find my identity as a human being and to defy the North Korean dictatorship as brainwashing reason. Escaping was not easy. It took a long time to prepare. When I crossed the North Korean border to China, I was so scared to be caught by the police. My heart was beating so fast, but I had to escape China as well. As I was making my way through China, I faced the sexual assault, and I couldn't say anything because it was too dangerous. I didn't want to be caught and sent back to North Korea. Finally, I made it to the border of China and Laos. It took 7 hours hiking through the mountains to cross into Laos. It was the most difficult moment in my life. I began regretting my decision to leave North Korea. The smugglers in Laos had us across the Mekong River to get to Thailand. I heard there are a lot of crocodiles in the river, but I didn't have a choice. I had to take another risk to achieve my dream. After 50 days, finally, we were taken to South Korea. We were held for 3 months while police checked we are not North Korean spies. I'm not a spy, you can believe me. Yeah. After that, I was required to spend 3 months learning about South Korean culture in a government-run re-education for North Korean refugees. I thought I would be very happy when I came to the South. No one could control me, so I often dreamed about dressing freely like this, studying what I wanted, and going around the world. However, I was on my own. I also had to pay back $7,000 to smuggler who helped me escape North Korea. I really needed a job to survive. So I found a job at a bakery. I thought if I work hard, I can save money and realize my dreams. I did my best, but I got fired after 1 month. Why did this happen? Because I didn't know the names of the breads. In North Korea, we only few breads with very simple names. In South Korea, there are hundreds of breads, and they were all new to me. I realized that I needed English to survive in South Korea. So I started studying at a non-profit organization in Seoul named Teach North Korean Refugees that helps the defectors learn English. Many other North Korean refugees face the same difficult situation in South Korea. TNKR does not simply teach English to North Korean refugees. It opens up a whole new world and helping us adjust to South Korean society. Many of volunteer teachers have full-time jobs, but they still come from all over the Korea to teach refugees in Seoul. I was so surprised that so many people were paying attention to North Korea and helping refugees. I thought about it then. So many people were supporting and encouraging us. I wondered, what could I do for these people who wanted to know about the North and help people in North Korea? At first, I was reluctant to share my true identity out of fear of being judged. But the kindness of others and their willingness to help encouraged me to tell my story in order to provide courage and hope to other defectors. I felt it was my duty to speak out. Thanks to TNKR and all their volunteer teachers, people who are passionate about helping North Koreans, I was finally able to admit it, I am from North Korea. I now live without a shred of embarrassment about my North Korean origin. Finally, I would like to ask this question. Do you enjoy your freedom? Yes. I will answer this for myself. Yes. I enjoy my freedom to travel on an airplane, going around the world, meet friends from all over the world, learn about new cultures, enjoy Latin music instead of songs that praise only the Kim family. I even enjoy the freedom to call Kim Jong-un a pig. Kim Jong-un is a pig. If you feel that your freedom is being controlled by others, you have the power to fight for the freedom that you deserve. I enjoy my freedom, but every time I think about being free, I know people in North Korea are not. I want North Koreans to know what freedom is. I cannot do this by myself. I need your help. Can you work together to make this happen? Yes. I am so delighted to be here speaking today at the Asia Liberty Forum. Thank you very much. As you Indonesian, terima kasih. Thank you.
Wow, that was pretty amazing. When I think about the things that we do in the United States to fight for freedom there, I'm always so humbled when I hear stories like that. It's truly, truly remarkable.